Before, they'd walk in the front door and say, I'd like to receive case management, and we'd take their application and we'd walk them through that service. Now they need to have the full min-choice assessment in order to potentially be eligible. So we may potentially see some additional people cropping up for Rule 185 that maybe wouldn't have before, just because of getting a min-choice assessment, maybe for another reason. If you look at your first graph there, we have continuously increased the number of cases and individuals we are providing Rule 185 case management for. In 2014, there were 190, up 4 in 2015, and up another 2 in 2016.
Excuse me,
Yes.
wouldn't you think cases would go down since they have to go through a process now?
So I am seeing and projecting that we may actually see them go up, because if an individual is going for a min-choice assessment, maybe just for PCA, all that they think that they want is PCA services, they'll be going through a min-choice assessment, which will crop up them potentially eligible
Tell them they're
for
eligible.
this also. So they maybe didn't even know that this would be something that they'd be
Yeah.
looking for.
And Mr. Chair, Penny, is that the intent of that min-choices tool, is that it was implemented and required just for that reason, to better identify what's going on with these individuals,
people
instead of
need.
concentrating on little bits at a time?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, and also to provide a consistent assessing tool across all of the different.
So a combination, I think, of aligning all of the assessments along with, instead of doing this for mental health and this for DD and this for PCA and this for, so that way you do one assessment, you can decide what service,
Cover 'em all.
what services they all are eligible for.
But, Mr. Chair, by doing it that way, allegedly, I mean, the idea behind it is to continually to keep those that were slipping through the cracks. They're there now.
Yep.
Right?
And this won't necessarily be shown in this, we're gonna get to some in-choice statistics, but again, it's also created more cases on within other areas of our organization, other than just DD, just because now they may be eligible for services that are waiver funded. Before, they would have never been eligible for waiver funding without the Minnesota Choices Assessment, given how the disability was so siloed prior to the Minnesota Choices Assessment.
Thank you.
So right now, we have 3.4 staff FTEs allocated to the DD case management. And it is required, just as kind of some other background information, that they have the DD Rule 185 case management in order to access the DD waiver, that they have to have that as well, so.
Okay.
The next graph is an update of the min choices and where we're at right now with those. Since really concentrating on it in November of 2015, you can see that the dark green ones are the total that we have completed in each month. So those new assessments that are coming through still kind of average right around that 10 new assessments per month that are coming in.
Mr. Chair, Penny, Brad, is it proper for me to ask our total number of clients that we work with that are developmentally disabled? Are we talking, is 196, is that the number?
Yes.
The total
Correct.
of everyone in Morrison County that we deal with that fall under what is referred to as the DD, if you will, is under 200 people.
Correct.
Very
Doesn't
good.
mean we're working with all of the disabled population.
not at all.
But that's what we currently are working with.
There might be 5,000,
There might
Right.
but there's, okay.
And again, we get cases where families have managed their child up until 30, 40, 50
Yep,
years
absolutely.
old.
Gotcha.
And now they're looking
They
for
can't.
support because parents are elderly and they might not have a sibling
Brad,
or.
if I may, is it physical and mental or just mental?
So the DD is the
Development.
physical or the cognitive
Yeah.
Okay.
disability.
Yeah, so this would not go into mental health at all.
Okay.
Not to say they might not have some mental health issues, but
Right.
we are talking strictly cognitive or physical.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, there are many people out there who continue to take care of their
Yep.
disabled.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
Exactly.
The next graph that you have is our min-choice assessments that have been completed, a breakdown of completion by program. So if you look at that, from January until the end of June here in 2016, our assessors completed 66 developmental disability reassessments this year, 55 new assessments, and then just a handful of PCA, Family Support Grant, Consumer Support Grant, and CDCS reassessments.
Mr. Chair, Penny, how many case managers do we have working in this
In Minnesota Choices
population?
specifically?
Well,
or-
I suppose it kind of bounces over, so to
So
speak.
for Rule 185, for the case management
Yep,
piece of it,
yep.
we have 3.4 staff assigned to do that case management. For min-choice assessment, we have 3.0 staff assigned, which is split up between 4 people.
Okay, just to give you an idea, there's 3.5 people that are working with this population. That takes quite a bit of time.
Absolutely. Your next graph shows that the DD waiver budget. So not everybody that is on Rule 185, case management, is necessarily on the DD waiver. Currently, in 2016, our budget is 9.3 approximately million, and we are at 47% of that budget to date.
Are we inclined to get to that budget, let's spend all that money, or do we try not to, or?
We try to spend that all because it does not roll over.
Okay, yeah, so you either use it or it's gone.
And actually, in this last legislative session, they now require us to be at 95% or 97%?
97%.
We have to spend 97% or we could be in a program improvement plan.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chair, anything over, say if we spend over the 100%, that's all county dollars.
not technically,
Okay.
but the state has currently indicated that anybody that overspends in the developmental disability or any waiver budget, they would try to make whole, but they still, as a state, have this big a pot of money.
Oh, I
So
see. I
if
understand.
everybody overspends,
Right.
then yes, the county could be at risk of having to use county dollars.
Okay, thank you, I understand.
Well, if we had, Mr. Chair, if we spent 97% of 100% of our budget, even my simple math is gonna tell me that there's 3% left over. So, but we're square at 97, we're fulfilled for the year, the calendar year, and pick a county, Todd County is over by 3%. Would the state, I mean, I don't know how this part of it works. Would the state not say, well, in simple math, Morrison County had 3% left over, it can go to.
Yep,
So-
correct.
Flows to the different.
Yep.
Goes to whoever.
Yep.
What is meant by waiver budget?
We have 3 different waivers that we manage and one that we allow public health to manage. And these are federal medical assistance dollars to serve disabled populations, to pay for a variety of services, accommodations, accessible activities, things like that. So
Waiver
it's,
is the word used to describe that pot of money that's available.
yeah.
Okay.
So total, we have 9 million in DD, a little over 9 million. We have 3.5 in CADI. And
Close to 5, yeah.
Close to 5 in CADI. The CADI,
That
TBI,
all rolls into the same, under the
So-
same budget.
and then the elderly waiver is an unlimited pot of dollars. So that's part of that 77 million when you see the report at the end of the year. This 9.3 million is part of that 77 million that we end up authorizing to be spent for nursing home, to maybe a construction company to build a ramp, or to PCA services from Horizon Health, or just a variety of providers that can work with these individuals who are disabled.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one more question on that. 3.5 people that actually do the case management are funded by the federal dollars to 100% or about half?
So they get funded under the waiver if they have waiver cases.
Okay.
Their time under those cases gets funded by the waiver.
Okay.
Anybody who is not on a waiver, their case management time for that is funded by the county.
Okay, with random moment potential or not?
With federal financial participation, Some of these staff also do Minnesota Choices, which is a funding, and that's part of the random moments. So even if the client is not under a waiver, there are still other dollars that are allocated based on our cost pool and our random moments and our federal financial participation funds.
But there is some local dollars that go to
Yes.
fund working with this population, but probably a majority of it is funded through waiver and other sources.
Correct. And when you see the budget this fall, this 9.3 million will not be in our budget because we are just the pass-through. We're the authorizing agency. So you don't ever see this 9.3 in the developmental disability section of our budget.
So, Mr. Chair, of the 70 million, rough figures, whatever it is that you come with, this 9 million, 9.3 is not part of that at all?
It is part of that 77
Okay,
million.
it is part of that.
It's not
Okay.
part of the $9 million budget
Gotcha.
that our agency currently manages.
Gotcha, thank you.
So just in review of the budget, Morrison County has been kind of meeting at that 97% over the last couple of years. It's worth noting that the agencies have up to 12 months to bill for their services. So if somebody in 2015, December 20th, provided a service to a client, they have until December 20th of 2016 to bill that. So the budget is just a little skewed, right? So you have to kind of wait until that full calendar year comes through. So, I mean, our numbers for 2014 are accurate because that billing is closed.
And Mr.
What-
Chair, then the feds allow that money to be spent for the past year's
Yep.
services? Okay, so it can flex, okay.
Which I think is a good point that Penny made, and that has always been a challenge, is getting to providers to bill timely. There are providers that struggle with billing, and case managers that from time to time have to push them a little bit, because the other challenge is that we have a projected amount that we're going to spend. So if providers aren't billing or providing the service, we need to know about it, so then we can authorize other dollars if another client is needing that service or that accommodation. So to manage this $9.3 million is very challenging for this group of case managers and Penny, because you gotta stay on top of providers, you gotta make sure they're billing timely, and because we wanna use these dollars, and that can impact that ability to use those dollars.
Your next graph shows the enrollment for the past 3 years. So in 2014, we had 118 individuals enrolled on the DD waiver. That maintained at 118 for 2015. And in 2016 already, we are up to 125.
I don't know if you're gonna say this, but I'll say this, and that's been, before we would have the DD waiver, and we had to actually have somebody pass away before we could allocate that slot to somebody else, because there's very few slots. It was hard to get a new slot, but because of Olmsted and the Jensen settlement, all of the waiver allocations are now, they're pushing us to use them. As Penny says, she requests a waiver slot for the developmental disabilities, and they say, sure, go ahead, and she's like, see another one, should I trust them? But we have been very fortunate that we have been able to meet the needs of those
And you
individuals.
can trust them, I'm assuming.
We can trust them, yes.
So, Mr. Chair, we're up to 125 DD cases.
DD waiver
Waiver
cases out of the 194 that we're currently serving.
So what happens if we had, of 194, what happens if we got 195 and 196 or 210 for the year 2016? Starting right now, we all of a sudden found this increase. Is there money there?
So every time I get
Or
a
can't
new
they be?
case that comes through from Min Choices
Yeah.
saying they are potentially eligible for a DD waiver,
Yep.
I contact the state and I ask for another allocation, and I lay out the case history for them and the need and reasons why this person would benefit from a DD waiver. From there, they respond to me and either say, yes, we have an allocation we can give you, and they give me another allocation, or they say, no, you can utilize your service opt dollars through your waiver budget if that allows. And what that is so every person on the waiver has a budget. And if they do not use up to that budget, then there's leftover dollars in our overall budget that
So
we
has it-
can use
Has
for
it ever
other
happened
people.
where we found ourselves where the state says no, and we say, well, what are we gonna do with this person? Where do we find the money? Is there a magic pot that we take it out of?
Call the levy? No.
Well, I don't care what it's called, but is there a magic pot that we find? Because this person needs help.
Right. We've had to do some creative thinking. I have had quite a few extensive conversations with the state waiver representative down there on a couple different individuals that really needed some pretty significant supports.
Yep.
And our budget wasn't going to allow for that. In those cases, the state did authorize for us to overspend and that they would review and monitor our budget throughout the year and make us whole at the end
Okay.
for those cases.
Okay.
So,
But this-
If someone comes from the county and they're on a waiver, is it transferred to us?
correct.
It is, okay.
Yep, and same with anybody who is in our county who transfers to another county, then that waiver goes with them to the
Okay.
other
Yep.
county as
Yep.
well.
That makes sense.
And there is no magic pot to it. I would say is that we are very cautious not to authorize services under the levy for the developmental, for this population, because it can get very costly. And so we really work with the state on either trying to get an allocation or work within our budget to make sure we can meet those needs until they either allocated within the budget or things like that.
So I guess my point is that we've not found ourselves in a position where we cannot help the person. Or have we?
I would say that we have met the basic needs that need to be met. We
Good
may
answer.
not be meeting everything that they necessarily want.
Okay, well, and there's a different
Yeah.
difference between want and need, but that's
Yeah.
what that's what
Yeah.
that's what the
Yes.
job is, so.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
So, if you wanted to skip ahead too, I do have the DD waiver allocations, since we have just been talking about those. In 2014, there were no.
So on the back
So, yeah, it's on the back page.
There were no allocations awarded to Morrison County in 2014. In 2015, there was one awarded. In 2016, in January, we were awarded one allocation. We currently have 6 that we have received in 2016. So those additional 5 waivers have been through us requesting them. And then as of July 1st, the state went through all of the counties and reallocated allocations based on need and requests that have happened. When that happened, we received 3 in July.
Okay.
So,
3 of the 6.
3 of the 6.
So
Yeah.
what happened to those other 3? That's what I'm trying to get to. We received 3 of the 6, money for 3 of the 6, right? What about those other 3?
So we did receive that same money. So on January 1st, we received one allocation and awarded that to an individual.
Yep.
So that money started January 1st.
Yep.
Between January 1st and July 1st, I had requested 2 or more
Yep.
new allocations, and we were awarded 2. Those were automatically assigned to an individual, and those monies started coming in immediately upon being assigned to that person. And then the other 3 started now in July
Okay.
1st.
There was no one left in the cold, if you will.
Again,
No
I
one
think
left
it's
out.
relative to say that they weren't left in the cold for us, that we're meeting their basic needs.
Basic
However, if you were to maybe ask them that question, they may not be getting all that they feel they're eligible for at this
Right.
point in time.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
We currently have 6 individuals on service opt, which means they do not have an allocation assigned to them. We are using our excess budget dollars that aren't being used by other people to serve them. So,
That answered it. Thank you very
And
much.
if I may go back to this Rule 185, who determines whether they're qualified or not?
the developmental disability case managers are required to meet certain criteria in order to make that determination. And that determination is first made by the min-choice assessment, that they are potentially Rule 185 eligible. Then the individual completes their diagnostic assessment with a professional, which gives the case managers their diagnosis as well as their adaptive functioning. So they need to meet both of those two criterias, and that's reviewed by the case manager team.
So I'm assuming there's some people out there that do not qualify that think they
Correct.
could.
Yep.
And therefore, those are the people too, you
Yep.
may wonder,
Yep.
you know, what.
And if you don't qualify, we give you that letter that says you do not qualify. They can appeal that decision to the Department of Human Services, so they do have some fallback. But yeah, there are some that think they may qualify, and they don't. They might have a disability, but it does not reach that level.
Right.
But again, through the Min Choices assessment, we may be able to meet their needs through other sources now that they have a Minnesota Choices assessment.
Perfect.
So,
The only other graph that I skipped over was the breakdown of the age of the DD waiver enrollees. Kind of showing that we serve everyone from 0 to whatever.
61 plus.
Right.
That's a kind
No.
word.
Right.
So in other words, a majority of ours are in 22 to 40, well, 22 to 60.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And again, once they get to a certain age after 61, they may qualify for an elderly waiver depending on what needs they may have. So they may switch waivers. They won't switch funding necessarily unless they go into a nursing home. So
Commissioner Wilson.
How about the military? If people come back and they have some mental issues, does that fall into a different category, or is that part of this here?
You know, it probably depends on their disability, what may have happened in the military. They could qualify for a mental health waiver, they could qualify for a CAC caddy or a traumatic brain injury waiver, or they could qualify for, they probably wouldn't qualify for a Rule 185 case manager just because some of the qualifications, but they would qualify for other waivers or other services.
So things aren't separate, like military stuff isn't over
No.
here, it's all together and it's a matter of who's helping who.
Yeah,
They may qualify in addition to other,
Right.
other
Yes.
military
Yeah.
specific services, but very often they coincide.
I'm just trying to think of some of these younger ages where people have come back and they've
Yeah.
got some issues, and I wonder if that fell into this, or.
Not as to the-
Usually
probably more
not.
the mental health
or
side of things. This is
the
more
traumatic brain injury,
Yep, okay.
those kinds of waivers, so.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I do
Thank
have-
you.
I do have one question. I've seen on the news, MNsure was canceling with Blue Cross was dropping MNsure. Is that correct? That's what we're with, right?
Nope, so that's different than this report here.
Right, no, I understand
Okay.
that. I understand that.
So, I think we're done on that one. So I will, is that okay if I let Penny go?
Oh, okay, I thought you were leaving.
No, I actually have one more thing, but,
Okay.
Thank you.
so that will not affect our medical assistance clients. That's for the private sector. So if you are employed full-time and reach a certain income guideline, under MNsure, they have other health plans that are available to them other than South Country Health Alliance or Medica are currently our prepaid managed medical assistance programs.
Okay,
So if you're on medical assistance, you're gonna either go to Medica or South Country Health Alliance.
so it doesn't affect us.
It does not
I just
affect,
thought we had to go through that whole routine again. that you
no,
went through
no,
last year.
thank
So-
God, no.
It's individuals out there who need to go buy insurance. This is an
Okay.
option to go into.
That's clarification.
I do have one other thing, Commissioners, if I may. So, I'm here actually to request to fill a position. This morning, Deb and Melanie and I met with an individual who came back from a medical leave. I would say to some degree under a trial. And unfortunately, it's not working out for them, that their disability continues to deteriorate because of their full-time status. They did receive a doctor's note that they could work part-time. However, the current position they're in is a full-time position, and we could not accommodate that. It's a children's mental health / parent support outreach position that is a full-time position that has a current over full-time caseload that we need to fill. She got her doctor's note late last week, and we ended up meeting with her this morning to kind of clarify some of the information. And so what I'm here requesting permission to refill that position.
And
It's-
again, Brad, you're not filling a position, you're replacing.
Placing, thank you.
Just want to make
Thank you.
sure we
Yeah,
know that we're
thank you.
replacing.
We're
And
replacing a position.
Replacing a position that you've made the
Right,
decision within
yep.
the last year to
Yeah,
replace.
exactly.
But it's a caseload that needs to be filled.
And this
We
is a
have-
need, right?
Yeah,
This is
we have
a
very
need.
much interacted with trying to make this work on both sides of the table, and unfortunately for both sides of the table, we need to replace them.
So, gentlemen, do we just give them the approval now? I'm assuming if that's what you wanna do, do you want?
Please.
Appreciate that. We
Yeah.
have a couple of weeks yet to help with transition time, but it would be
Sure.
nice to get the ball rolling.
I'm go for it. Got a
Second.
motion, and I got a second from Commissioner Jelinski. All in favor?
Further discussion?
Oh, that's right, so we have further discussion?
Well, and this position is paid for how?
Through parent support outreach grant funds that we get from the Department of Human Services, which is a set amount, and medical assistance and targeted case management.
Very good, thank you.
Good question.
And I just want to say again, Mr. Chair, if I may, and you said it already, this is not a want. This is something that we have to do.
Yeah.
And by saying that, this is a no-brainer. We have to replace the person, that's how it is.
Commissioner Wilson?
When you have a position like that she could work part-time, does that, when in your office, does that mean if there was another part-time spot available, she would move into possibly if she could handle that?
Yes,
Or
possibly.
it's
Yeah.
just because this is a full-time position, you need to replace
Yeah.
it with a full-time position, and
Great question, and we talked about that.
Yeah.
The ability to recruit and retain somebody at part-time when there's no benefits, when it doesn't bump them into that full-time position. It's tough right now with full-time even to
Yep.
recruit and retain that professional. So to drop it to part-time would really be burdensome, so to speak. And the expectation will still be there in terms of that workload just scaled back. And it's something that when we talked about wasn't either a good option for the agency or a good option for that employee.
But you had a good discussion.
I
Absolutely, we
guess
worked
that's
well
everything.
together,
I mean, I
yep.
can see a
That's all I
doctor
have.
saying I can only work half-time, but I don't wanna quit.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
a good
matter
point.
of how do things fit. for
And if
the-
we can make that work, that's the process we go
Sure.
through
Yeah.
with somebody who has, a request, who needs an accommodation. We absolutely, it's an
Yeah.
interactive process that we go through many times that's happening. And when it works for the business needs of the organization, we're absolutely more than willing to do that. This was a very, very long mutual discussion that led to the point of we did so many things and you can only go so far. And this is the result.
Difficult discussion for both sides.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
unfortunate.
Thank you, I just like that we try to.
And we,
accommodate.
and we currently don't have any part-time positions in our agency, so,
Any more discussion, gentlemen? Not? Thank Brad.
thank you, have a
Appreciate
great day.
Did you vote? I
it.
don't
Oh,
know
did
if
we
we
take,
did.
oh, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I'm going on leave. Well, you guys talk too much. Public health.
Good morning.
Just state your name, please.
Good morning, Katie.
Katie Kirschner. Morning. All right, so I'm here to talk about a couple grants. First, basically FYI for most of them. First of all, the Towards Zero Death Grant, the TZD grant we get from the Office of Traffic Safety. We were awarded this grant for fiscal year 2017. We got $13,290, and that starts October 1st. We have received this grant on and off since 2009. They work with the Safe Roads Coalition to reduce fatalities and serious injuries in traffic crashes. Want to put a prop out there. They are on Facebook, so if you go on Facebook, it's the Morrison County Safe Roads Coalition. So go and like their page, and all the events that they do in the education should be on there. The funds are really competitive and are expected to keep decreasing. So we will be working this year to strategize with that coalition on some sustainable efforts to make sure that we make the most of the little funding that we do get. Right now, they're focusing on DWIs, speeding, distracted driving, and seatbelt usage. So those a lot of education around those 4 points. Any questions on that one? All right, so the next one is, so I came to the board back in January to get approval for applying as the fiscal host for the planning and implementation grant for the Royalton School District. Unfortunately, we did not receive that funding. It was very competitive this year, and they said overall our grant proposal was very good. However, it just was one of those years where there was a lot of a lot of need in the state and a lot of people apply.
And that's kind of a positive thing that they didn't get it, kind of, because it's kind of like there wasn't as much need in Royalton, I guess, maybe.
In a way, yes. Some of the feedback, I did ask for some feedback on the application. We did include marijuana in on the application because it's something that the law enforcement is seeing and the school is seeing as an issue. Unfortunately, for the data did not show that, and we knew that going into it, but we still included it. You know, a lot of times data will be behind a few years because we don't have a lot of real-time data. And so that was one of the comments that the reviewers made, was that the data for marijuana really didn't support it.
Mr. Chair, and you mean in the student surveys? Is that how they gather
So
the data
they gather
for it?
yes, that's a big part of it, the
Okay.
state data for marijuana rates. But there may be some other things that they look at too.
Good, thank you.
And then the other piece that they discussed was the lack of law enforcement, the lack of assurance that law enforcement would do alcohol compliance checks. It wasn't something that we didn't say we would do in the application, but it wasn't something that we highly focused on, so I think they just drew that conclusion. We have had talks with the sheriff's office and law enforcement about doing alcohol compliance checks. We're discussing right now if it'd be a good fit for Morrison County, and we're gonna talk about that more into the future. Kind of disappointing that was one of the things they picked out, because it's not that we
Would
wouldn't
you
do
explain
that.
alcohol
thank you.
compliance checks? Could
You know, so
explain that?
they're very similar to tobacco compliance checks, where you would send in somebody underage into a liquor store to try to buy alcohol, and whether that establishment passes or not, you either, you know, do some, give fines and give some education around the issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think with all these grant applications, you know, they focus on different things, like they'll look at language and like Katie said, they kind of draw conclusions from that language regardless if they specifically asked about it or you specifically identify it for however it is you wrote the grant, you know, and it's one of those you learn every time you do it on what they're looking for, and it may change the next round where they have open grant application periods and whatever, so you learn every time. You try your best. Grant writing is kind of an art sometimes and not so much a science, and depending upon the application pool and how large it is, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And so good effort. I think that was a good example of the folks in the Royalton School District and the community really pulling together. There was a lot of positive comments about that. That's a positive in and of itself. So there are some good things that come out of the work done up to that point. Unfortunately, we didn't get funded, but it certainly was a good exercise, I think.
And I don't think this is over for Royalton. You know, we did draw this group of people together to have a discussion around the need in Royalton. Not something that we're just gonna drop because we didn't get a grant. You know, we can pull some smaller efforts together in the meantime to kind of build up to maybe applying for a different type of grant. This just wasn't that grant.
Is there, Mr. Chair, is there, Katie, is there another time, a year from now, can this be applied for again? Should Royalton say, we'd like to get involved in this more, or continue to be involved in it?
You know, this particular grant is on a 5-year cycle, and they only do it every 5
Okay,
years.
very
But
good.
that's not to say there isn't another grant out
Yep.
there that can
No, no, no.
focus on drugs and
Yep.
alcohol.
Yep.
And it is a good idea for a community to kind of start getting the ball rolling, so that when you do apply for a grant, you can show that
Absolutely.
you're interested in that this is an issue that the community wants to engage in.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I think it is important, though, that they have data to back that up, because perception of people think that drugs are in all the schools and they're all drink and this and that. And the data is very important, that if it's not there, then maybe it's not happening. You know, so we always presume it is, but there's a lot of areas where it's not. So,
It's not, or it's certainly hard to get at the true numbers and things like that, where you're asking people to respond to surveys and things like that. We try, and you're right, it needs to support it.
And you're right.
And we have to remember that we used the word competitive several times here, competitive grant. A competitive grant is real simple. Are the i's dotted? Are the t's crossed? We have 2 of them, one here and one here. They are exactly correct. You forgot a comma somewhere. Guess what? Bye. It's a competitive grant. When it comes down to it, it is exactly that, competitive. What do you have in it, and what did I forget? I forgot a period, if they're both the same, guess what? The guy that forgot the period, they had to make a decision somewhere. I get that.
I think in this case, it was around the data.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Sure.
I
Without a
think in
doubt.
this case, it was really, this grant really focuses a lot on alcohol, and they only give out 9 grants in the whole state of Minnesota. And think about how many school districts and cities and counties are in Minnesota. So I call that pretty highly competitive.
Absolutely.
So, any other questions about the P&I? All right, so the last grant is, so the Community Health Board, which is Morrison Wadena, is going to be considering a tobacco-free communities grant. So this is through the Minnesota Department of Health. So this is just a kind of for your information. Our representatives, Commissioner Johnson and Wilson, will be hearing about this at the CHB Executive Committee meeting. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about it. So if you wanted to talk to the reps before the meeting, you could. So this grant it's really aimed at reducing and preventing youth tobacco use, and to address tobacco-related disparities in Minnesota. Something really high, health disparities is really high on the list for the Minnesota Department of Health right now. They're integrating it into all the language. They're really focusing on it. They're taking the funding and going, talking about health disparities. And so this is one of those efforts that the data shows tobacco is an issue in Minnesota. It's actually the #1 preventable cause of illness or disease in Minnesota. And then also health disparities and putting those together. The funding will provide training and other resources for local communities to work together to reduce those tobacco disparities and the negative influence of commercial tobacco use. So what this grant will end up doing is it engages the community in an assessment process, and then it does education and partnership building. Those are the strategies it uses with the funding. And it works on helping change the social norms around commercial tobacco use and secondhand smoke exposure. It really engages local partners. That's one of the things that the CHB really liked about it is, first of all, it aligns with what we're already doing with our SHIP grant. It doesn't overlap with it, but it aligns with it really well. So it'll help the SHIP funding that we're already getting at the CHB level. And the local piece. And it focuses on those sustainable changes like policy, system, and environmental changes. So this is the grant period is 5 years. It starts this November. If we do get the funding, we're not going to hire anybody new. It's going to be split between Morrison, Todd, and Wadena counties. So very recently, the board passed MOU talking about kind of the staff sharing idea and working together with the counties. So that's what we're looking to do for this grant, is to kind of break the work up and work within the counties. So again, the CHB Executive Board will be considering this and hearing about it. So is there any questions?
Nope.
Okay, I have a couple housekeeping things. First of all, from the Minnesota Department of Health, we got this camp letter. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We are sending it out electronically to all the camps. We have everybody's email address, and we are sending that out. But a really great letter that talks about some of the things that happen in camps, like bats and drinking water and ticks and mosquitoes. And so just wanted you to be aware that that will be going out to all the camps in the county. The second thing is, so Medica, which is one of our health plans, has requested that all employees and board members review the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services compliance policy. Are you aware of having any training at the state level or regional level on Medicare or Medicaid fraud and abuse or compliance?
It didn't sound familiar to me, but I figured you guys would know better, so.
Not to me.
Okay, so the purpose is just to familiarize everyone with the need to report suspected fraud, waste, and abuse on behalf of the health plans. Right now, it's just Medica, but we're thinking that the other health plans will be coming and having us sign. We have to sign an attestation that we're in compliance with understanding the rules around that. And so
Just one moment. Brad, please. Yep.
Actually, all the health plans require that,
Right, and they just haven't,
and we've done that for a long time, but we've never required the county board members to do that, except for, I believe, Dwayne has done it under South
South
Country.
Country.
And Mike may have done it under South Country.
So what you're saying, we're not required to do it, the board members?
I've never asked you to do that, and I don't know if we're getting a different message from Medica today, but just because we're the policymakers, or you're the policymakers and we're the doers, so.
Is there some kind of, is it a big deal?
well, we did get called by Medica. They did call us and talk to us, and
This way.
they thought maybe that all commissioners had been trained at a state level.
Are you kidding?
That's what they said.
You know, the question I have about that.
But anyway, that's kind of what I had to say, Mr. Chair.
I guess if I may interrupt, Dwayne, was it tough training?
No, it was just something you had to go to.
Was there a test, was there a test involved?
It was a group test. Real hard one.
Mr. Chair, how long was the training doing?
It was,
days.
ours was, ours was, hour or two at a meeting.
Mr. Chair, how about we hammer out whether or not we think we
Yeah,
need to
I
do
think that
that?
would
be- Yeah.
But if we determine we do need to, would you rather do an online module individually, or would you rather us schedule a couple of hours and do it as a group?
Whatever's convenient for.
Well, no, I'm gonna, whatever's
Well, I
convenient
think-
for you, I think we
what
can.
happened down there was, there was a gentleman that came in and talked about it, went through the whole
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
And then we took the test
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
like,
I like the
to
group
do
thing
that.
myself.
I mean, the
Okay,
group
and
would
that's
be-
all we wanted for feedback, so,
Okay, I like
we
the
will,
group.
we
I like
will
the
make
group
sure
thing.
we
So
need
if
to
you
do
could
that.
check in that
If
and
we
then
do,
let us know. How's
and
that?
we'll try to find a way to schedule that, because there's an online thing, that's what we didn't know for sure, if you'd rather do that, or if we can schedule some time.
If we do need it.
The question I have on that
I
is,
am.
you said so that we can
like it.
see fraud and so forth. The problem is, anytime we ask a question about somebody's medical or this or that, you tell us that we can't tell you. So how would I know that there's fraud when I can't ask you any questions about anybody's?
And that, Mr. Chair, is probably where Brad's coming at with well, the practical
Well, that's what I mean.
implication
Yeah, I
of that
mean,
is,
why-
isn't really there. And so, we need to look specifically if the,
And it could have been this one employee's interpretation
yes,
of the rules.
exactly.
Because, I mean, we talked to this employee several different times, and she said, no, I'm pretty sure this means you're board members, and it says it right on their attestation here, that it says board members. So we will look more into
Yeah.
it.
Not to say a constituent wouldn't call you and maybe you get a sense that, you know, because they are doing something that doesn't sound quite right with medical assistance or,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, you'll call us right away and we we run with it from there, so. But anyway,
It
We'll
is
look
what
at
it
it,
is.
and we'll schedule something more to come
big
if,
deal.
if we need to complete
To
that.
be later talked about.
No big deal at all.
The last thing I have is, a while ago, in May, they were, the SHAC committee was offering the Conference for Local Elected Health Officials for Flint, Michigan, Safe Water Drinking. Does that kind of ring a bell? I said I would watch for it. It was recorded. And I said I would let you guys know when that happened. I did get that email. There's a presentation. It's about an hour and a half-ish. There's slides and a brochure that go with it. So I could either send out the information about the video, or I could schedule something for the whole board if you guys would like to watch it.
When you say send it, you email us the video and everything?
So there's a link to a video
to
that you
video.
could watch, and then there's handout and a brochure that goes with it. Or if you'd like to watch it as a group and be able to discuss and ask questions.
Popcorn and movie night, or just on your own?
Yeah, it's
I would
up to you.
prefer, I mean, just email it and then we
Yep,
can do it on our
okay.
own time. It's up to you guys. I'll take the majority here.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I will do that.
That's fine.
Sounds great. That's all I have.
All right,
Thank you.
Katie, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a wonderful day, Katie.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, Katie.
Planning and zoning. I had to put my glasses on. Now I can
Glad
see
you're
it.
here, Amy. We kept you up all night last night.
So how was your
Amy,
trip
good
to
morning.
Australia?
I was not in Australia. I was
She was in a better place.
I was in the metropolis of Park Rapids.
Oh, well, that's close.
Yes, and it was very nice. So,
I thought you were talking about Agram Township last night.
oh yes.
Well, you were there too?
I
Well,
was
that's
in
kind of
Agram
like
Township last
Australia.
night.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I was
She
really,
in a
I'm
better
really
place.
making my rounds.
There you go.
Yes. I'm here today to ask you to consider the rezone request from Barry Johnson Properties. If you recall, at the last planning commission meeting, he requested to rezone a portion of a commercially zoned property to residential. This was recommended for denial by the planning commission. And I will remind you that
It takes a,
to amend the plat, to amend the zoning map, you need a supermajority, and you cannot condition a rezone.
gentlemen, I need a motion to consider the denial of the rezone request for Barry Johnson Properties. That,
I would so move on that,
I
Mr.
have a
Chair.
motion by Commissioner Johnson. I need a second.
I'll say.
Commissioner Wilson seconded. Any
Well,
discussion,
Yes.
gentlemen?
You know, that's commercial for a reason, and with everything else commercial. So I think if we would go and allow that, we're asking for problems. You know, you heard Tri-City Paving, they're right there. They're allowed sometimes, and so, but that is commercial for a reason, that area. So I think that's the right thing.
And if I may too, we had a great discussion at the planning meeting, and they also recommended that we do not, and a lot of good questions. We had public speak in, so again,
And the township.
The
township was there too, so
Yep.
it was just a good meeting, and
Yep.
again,
And that was kind of the main road, if I'm not mistaken, for the fertilizer plant and
Right,
stuff
right.
that goes by there,
Right.
so it was, yeah, I think everybody was pretty well pleased that that's. what it
Everybody in
was.
that area is commercial, so.
Mr. Chair, and I reviewed the file, I wasn't able to attend that meeting, and I reviewed it all, I actually spoke with Jack from Tri-City as well, and, yeah, trouble with that situation is, these are big businesses that have big trucks going back and forth by there, it's very industrial, it's very noisy. From my perspective, it would be spot zoning without a doubt, and to put a small residential piece within all of that industrial. It also will affect further industrial development of big places, or could. The other thing is, and I don't think this is about the individual who I know quite well who proposed this or was requesting this, but if that place were to sell and something else were to put there, then it could create issues as well in the future, so just, yeah.
and the point we're looking at here too, gentlemen, and Amy, is that there is residential in this area, but they're grandfathered in under the old ordinances, and if they ever would sell them, or I shouldn't say sell them, if they would ever just discontinue them, then they would go into commercial also, so.
Correct.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I really truly believe that when Mr. Johnson was here discussing this, through discussion, I think he got it also, quite honestly.
Yep.
I'm all for business. I absolutely am, and I'm certainly all for residential at the same time. However, in this case, I believe that the applicant actually understood at the same time as everybody else that, you know, after hearing all the discussion, maybe it's not the best place for it to.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? If not, those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, that's all I
Thank you,
have for you today.
appreciate it.
I got one thing for Amy.
Thank you, Ms. Amy.
I just want to thank you for last night. We had a meeting at Egram Township, and it was over issues of septic systems that didn't comply and stuff. And I want to thank you for your professionalism. And because, you know, those are always a little technical. When you get in there, people are upset about things. And I want to thank the group of people that were there too, because they were very good about discussing this item. And I want to thank you for how you handled things.
I thought it was a good discussion, and it needed to happen
Yep.
for those people, so thank you for being there too.
Appreciate it, Amy.
All right.
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Amy.
Assessors. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Glenn.
I have one abatement application to bring before you today. It's concerning a property that was, we entered into CAMA on us when the property was split. It was entered twice and therefore resulted in property being a little overvalued.
Gentlemen, I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Pretty easy one, Glenn.
Auditors report.
Morning, Deb.
Morning, Deb.
We have a request for a raffle from the Hillman Area Whitetail Management Association, December 3rd at Porcupine Brothers Bar and Grill.
Is that the only one that we have?
That is the only
Okay.
one today.
I need a
I'll
motion,
make that
gentlemen.
motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Commissioner Wilson, second, you got that? Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I believe we have warrants.
All right, this will be a roll call on the
Also
warrants.
move on the warrants.
I'll second.
I got a motion from Commissioner Johnson, second Commissioner Mauer. This will be a roll call, any discussion? If not, Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
myself, aye. Motion carries.
Don't believe I have anything else.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Deb.
And moving right along, we've got Public Works.
We have a really big public works report.
See that?
I like that.
I think he's got a little water issue out
We
there in
did
the
it just
county
for
right
you.
now. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of going on. I would suspect that we will probably meet the threshold for a disaster declaration
Okay.
in terms of damage. Southeast probably is the worst right now.
Coming in this morning, I heard they're on KLTF or whatever, so I won't promote them or whatever, but anyway, anywhere from 10 inches to 5 inches throughout the county. So there's a lot of water out there.
Yeah, it down that southeast, the locals 8 to 10, around this area, probably 6 to 7.5. So everything is loaded up, and usually the damage that we'll see probably will come in the next couple of days. It really doesn't manifest itself until everything gets in the system and things start to have to work at capacity, and then you start to see some of the real problems.
There's a lot of washouts.
Yeah, we've, down in that area, there's driveways that have been taken out on a couple of the low volume county roads. We have major pipes that are out, those roads are closed. Mille Lacs County, there's 16, which ties into R32 off of 33. They shut that down, that went out. So we got some pretty major roads that are underwater right now.
Mr. Chair, if there's anything you want on either, if there's help that we can provide on social media or just notifications of that, just let Tabitha know and we can get that out.
And we're working with Victoria for getting preliminaries in so that she can deal with any type of applications that may have to take place. So the other thing that I had this morning was earlier this year, the county board had authorized the department to make application for work to conduct repairs on the Mississippi River Bridge over the Mississippi River on the Sioux Line Trail. We had two applications that we had submitted. One was the Federal Recreational Trails Grant, which has a $150,000 cap on it. And then also we were working to try and get bonding money through the bonding bill that was expected to be passed in the legislature.
So we go with that, what happened there?
What happened, we were successful previously on the ramps off the Sioux Line Trail where we had bonding money and we had trail grant money, and we can use those to match each other. Well, if you don't have both of them, you can't use them to match each other. We have been successful on the $150,000 federal trail grant, but we potentially will have to match that ourselves. So we'd have to match that with $50,000. I want to confirm with the board that we can proceed with that so that we can match it and utilize it
If I may interrupt you, which I'm good at, you're asking for we got a $150,000 grant, you keep on saying match, it's not a match.
It's a 75-25.
Okay,
I mean,
there
it's
we go.
not an equal match, but we do have to provide some kind of a match to it. Now, we still can be successful in bonding in 2017. We'd try again if depending on how all this stuff plays out. But the potential that we are successful going that direction, I think is well, it's certainly not a guarantee, probably less than half. I think that we would like the board to authorize us to proceed with this. We'll work on accepting the $150,000 and try our best to try to get the match through the state. But if we don't, we would have to come up with it ourselves.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, so we get $150,000 federal if we match it with 25%, $50,000. And next year when the bonding bill, if they do pass the bonding bill, can we then later get that money,
Well,
possibly?
we would work on this grant to get everything in place. We wouldn't expend any money. As soon as you expend money, you can't get reimbursed for it. So if we were successful then in 2017 on bonding, it would give us, the window for us to do the work would be shorter, but we would then utilize that for that 25% match.
Okay, great, and the next question would be, the money that you would use now would come out of Parks Trails, or out of?
That's what I would expect, that we'd have to draw down on the Parks and Trail fund, which we would have in there in order to come up with the 25% match. This is the project would be substantially larger if we received bonding money. We were looking at total rehabilitation of the pedestals and the pier caps. If the bonding money doesn't come through, then really what we would apply this to is the repair of the pier caps themselves. And then I guess in the future, we'd continue to try to seek revenue or outside revenue to repair the columns.
Sure.
Pier cap is the top, I presume.
The very top,
Yep,
yes.
They did that.
Yep.
Like the one that we did one because it was so bad, but the other four need to
And you
also.
had the drones, look at those last year, right?
We had a test project in which they utilized a drone to do inspections of the bridge over the Mississippi on the Siouxland Trail, yeah.
Okay.
Question, if we don't do it, eventually they probably have to shut the little trail bridge down and going across them, which is a very attractive to that area.
And really not that little.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, you know, so
If we don't do something,
Yeah.
when that time would be, I can't tell you,
Right.
but
could be tomorrow, could be 10 years from now, right?
I think if it was tomorrow, we'd hope we'd given you a little advance notice.
We never know, we might get more rain. So.
But it's certainly getting worse, and we need to do something. We've been talking about this for a long time.
You have the money in your funds?
We draw on the fund balance of the Parks and Trail Fund.
Okay, sure.
Gentlemen, any more discussion? Did I get a motion?
moved.
I got a motion from Commissioner Mauer, second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, and the trails are so important to this area and economics of this area, so I can't state that enough. And we need places for people to recreate, and I've pushed that and been in support of that since I've been here, so that's very important, so.
And Mr. Chair, it needs to be done. And if we don't act on it, we'll never be able to get any grant awarded to us if we don't move forward. I mean, just to believe that something's gonna just stand there forever and nobody has to maintain it is quite honestly foolishness. We need to get it done.
So do we need to put a dollar amount on this, Steve, the 50,000 or not?
That's what it would be, You can if you want.
You know, so,
To apply for the grant would be that 150,000 and the parameters that.
the 50,000.
We have been awarded the grant.
Oh, we haven't,
got the
okay,
grant.
We
yes.
have the grant.
We got the grant, it's the
Yeah.
50,000.
So this is
But
the
we need to
match
match it to get
to
the-
that.
Well, not match again, it's not match, it's,
Oh, right,
it's
right,
50,000. Well, match is
25%.
150,000.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't call it that.
That's what it's
No,
called.
I don't call it that. All right.
You're the only one, everybody else
Well,
does.
it's kind of we can discuss that. A match means you're gonna give me the same amount. Okay, anyway, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, I have a question for you. When we have disaster in our county, no matter where it's at, how do the commissioners get involved? We don't, or we just, if people call us?
People call us.
Is there anything that?
As
we should do?
you take calls, that there might be some, Randy had contacted me, there was issues in his district that people were having, so that we know about them. Some of this we have to prioritize, because we don't have enough staff to hit it all at one time. Where we have to log it, we have to make estimates on repairs, some of the repairs we do immediately as emergency repairs. All of that then is taken in considered when the disaster declaration is made on how reimbursement is made and that type of thing. And so, if you receive calls or if you're aware of any type of damage that is out there, that would be the best thing for you to do, is contact us so that we can get it in our system and work it through the process.
Okay, because I'm sure people will call if there's an issue somewhere. We don't go out and
Yeah.
look, townships probably do their thing and how it all fits together. I mean, I always call you, but I'm just trying to think, sometimes you feel like you should go out and help with something, but I don't know what there is to help with.
Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't, you're right.
Okay.
In this situation though, where there is such a vast amount of, there's a vast amount of damage that's out there. We're evaluating every road. We'll be, by the end of the day, I hope that we've covered with the staff that's out there, looked at every road and where we may have issues. Some of them we know because they've manifested themselves already, but some of it will be coming up over the next couple of days.
Okay.
But the amount, you know, in trying to determine the amount is how the disaster declaration is declared it in the, to start it off anyway. So we have to meet a certain threshold of damage before our county would be eligible for that. And that's not just us, it's also the townships. And we need to, when we know about it, we need to log where those locations are, they need to document pictures, they need to give a rough estimate on what they think the cost of repair would be. All of that then comes together.
They are you, right?
That is our staff, right?
Right, okay. I'm just trying to think how you try to help people, but I don't know what you can do to help, except let you know that there's something wrong for you to take care of.
Yes. And
Well,
some
like
of
you
it,
said, he has to prioritize them, you know?
Right, I understand that.
some of it, you know, this issue was a pipe that had so much debris, it was blocking it up, and the water was backing up, that it would be one that we'd prioritize high to get a backhoe in there and try to get that opened up right away.
So go water away.
And it's important, while, you know, you say you wanna help, there's that process we have to go through in order to
Yep.
be able to define what the damage is before we fix it. We can't, you know, go out and fix it quick and then not have that logged properly, otherwise you don't get the funding that comes back with it.
No, I
So-
understand, and I just, you know, I mean, you're in you're at this position, and it's like, I understand, people call me, I call you right away, that's how I take care of it. I just guess I wanted to discuss that a little bit, to see if that's the right procedure.
Part of how that whole disaster thing is gonna be, Stearns County had a lot of damage done to them. We're contiguous, I think is the right word, with them also. So all that dollar value stuff perhaps could be, don't know how it's gonna all work out, will be combined. Ours will add to it to make that disaster actually declaration happen, as far as the state is concerned,
That's right. There's
there's
two,
lots of
there's
stuff.
two
to play in there.
two opportunities. One is a state declaration, one is a federal declaration.
Yeah.
And the federal declaration is based on all these counties across the state and how much damage they have. And our ability to apply for that would be that we have enough within our county. There are thresholds we have to meet. So if we didn't have very much, we wouldn't be eligible.
We as a county are out there working, trying to find out what people need.
Yeah, and it is a tough thing, you know, when you're dealing with water and Mother Nature and people, they want something done immediately and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, especially when it's low land to begin with.
I guess,
Yeah.
what, the question that I would have, do we have to make a county, in Morrison County, do we have to make a declaration?
I think
For the
something
state
does
amounts,
come,
right.
yeah.
No, we
I
haven't
think
made
at
that.
some point in time you will. We're not ready for that yet.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I recall the
Something.
process, it's been a
I
little
think so,
bit, but
yeah.
yeah,
I
we
think that the county
do
has.
the back end work, we get the amounts, we get.
And
the-
there's so much time also, if I remember right, as far as the county
Yes.
coming up and making that declaration.
so.
And I don't recall what it is, I'm
I
sorry.
don't either, but I know that that's,
But I believe
believe
there is
it's part of it,
I
that's
believe there's a time span.
Yes, there is.
I don't remember what it
Thanks
is.
so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Administration report.
I don't have action items, just giving you a notice of a few things we're working on. One you may have heard of, I don't know that I've talked to the board about it yet. There is the finalized rules have come out regarding the Fair Labor Standards Act change put in place about overtime. The exempt versus non-exempt overtime rules, I don't know if you've heard that, and that threshold has been raised. And so what I'm doing, what we're doing is really taking a good look. It's a good time to take a look at where we're at with staffing, where and who is scheduled or identified as exempt, and who's scheduled and identified as non-exempt, making sure we're following those rules. I'm not worried at all that we aren't. We in many cases do a lot more than that basic standard of Fair Labor Standards Act requirements regarding overtime rules. So I'm not concerned with that at all, but it is something we need to pay attention to. It's something we need to really use as a good opportunity to make sure all managers are on the same page, make sure we're really taking a look at this organization-wide and treating it the same. It's not something that we've done in a long time, so it's a good opportunity to do that. Some may change in terms of whether time for time is awarded or time and a half is awarded, but those are things we're going to talk about and we're going to fully vet as a leadership group. The implementation date is December 1 of 2016.
Are we talking state law, federal law, or
Federal
are we
law.
talking Morrison County?
Federal law.
If I may, I think it's the threshold is 47,000,
It's
right?
about 47,000.
But it's also, to my understanding, it's for salaried people. So if you're getting a salary of 38,000 a year, not hourly, then that's where the overtime applies. But if you're making 70,000 in your salary, it doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, and the goofy thing, exempt and non-exempt status with government employment is a little unique in that we truly aren't salaried. And
Right.
even, I have a time card that I fill out, and we have to attest for time, and we have to do that a certain way, and because of the other laws we have to follow. So it's kind of a goofy deal, and we've had, there's histories of different collective bargaining agreements that have done certain things a certain way. We have had historically non-work time count towards that calculation, like PTO, where the law doesn't count that. There's a lot of things that go on with that. So that's why I'm saying I don't know that it'll impact the organization greatly, is what I'm anticipating. But I do know that we ought to take this opportunity to make sure we're consistently applying the rules that we apply. And so that's what I'll be working with management group on and making sure that we're properly inventorying our employees and what's going on and then properly addressing it. So an opportunity for that. And then that level, that wage level, and they kind of equate it down, will adjust is one of the other components that was in that federal legislation. So
And I think what happens is it's more for the retail end of it, because there you got someone that works at a fast food, he's a manager or she's a manager, and she's making $30,000 a year and putting in 50 hours of, that's where they really are gonna go after them and make them pay.
well, yep. I think there's, unintended consequences
Yeah.
to everything, and
Yeah.
where the government sector is really quite impacted in certain areas
Yeah.
that maybe wasn't necessarily intended, but that's how that works when you change a law that impacts all employees. And so, again, don't think we have a huge issue here, but it's certainly an opportunity to take a look at that. So we're working on that. Working on a number of different things as usual in the office. The open position and vacancies have kind of, while I say this, I don't want to jinx ourselves here, but is a little bit slowed down. We've gotten a bunch of folks hired and on board. The transition for community corrections has been quite smooth, and those employees are on board. We're working on getting the specifics of payroll SEP and all that fun stuff put in place. Really doing well there. So a lot of good things. We're working on insurance, as you well are aware, for the 2017. I have today I have to get out a meeting for next week with the group again to talk about moving forward. I received a notice of intent to negotiate for the essential groups. So we have law enforcement, labor, LELS, law enforcement, labor, something.
Services.
And then
Services.
also Teamsters groups will be up for 2017. So we'll be meeting about that in the coming months, getting some direction from you folks on where to go with that.
Well, Mr. Chair, and I'm out there quite a bit now, and I want to thank Deb for all her work with corrections, because that transition has been so important, and I've spoken to a couple of employees, and it's really been seamless, and it might not have been, so, thank you for that, that's so important, it really is. We've got good employees there, and
We do. We have
and
good
they
employees
seem to be,
over.
they seem to feel like they've been treated very fairly and heard, so thank you.
Yeah, so I think we're good. Anything for me?
Anything else yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Deb, can you inform us on what we're doing with the tribe stuff? We've
Yes.
asked about different things and working with Mille Lacs and
Good deal. We had submitted quite some time ago the thoughts in that resolution opposing that action taken by Mille Lacs Band to move those acres from fee title to trust. I had contacted, the week before last, a gentleman from the BIA that we submitted it to Bureau of Indian Affairs, and asked where the status was, and he said it's still under review. He had said that once we submitted comments, and those included comments also from the townships. I think Lee formalized something, and then Richardson also. Once we submitted those, they then released those to the band, who then had another opportunity to address those specific comments. I had asked for that information. Us is what I'm referring to on behalf of the board, aren't privy to that unless we do a data request, and so I have that submitted. The time it takes to turn that around is, your guess is as good as mine, but I did submit that and did receive acknowledgement that that was submitted. I don't know what that's going to tell us, other than at least we know what's happening, or know what they've said or identified, and you're able then to pass that along if somebody's interested. That's where it's at. I haven't gotten a confirmation or any type of assurance on when to expect that decision. I don't know. I'm in contact with Mille Lacs County. I'd like to set up a meeting just to talk with a couple commissioners, with the county attorney, with myself, with the sheriff, with whomever else would want to be involved regarding what they've experienced, what we could learn from their experiences, what kind of steps we want to make sure we take, what has happened since they've taken certain steps, that kind of thing. Just because they've dealt with it so much more than what, obviously, we have. This is our first attempt. So we're working on trying to find dates that will work for that. July 4th time period in the summer months, it seems as if we're kind of a hit and miss here with people available, but more to come on that. I'm anticipating it would be a couple representatives from the board that would participate in that as well, to be able to have and gain some knowledge with what they've experienced. I think, learning from our neighbors is always a good thing, or at least getting their perspective. So more to come on that.
I just think it's important that we get a meeting with them.
Yep.
And try to sit down and figure out where to go before it's too late. That's,
Well, Mr. Chair, I spoke with the Mille Lacs County Sheriff last Friday at another meeting, and it's imperative, in my opinion, that we sit down and we talk with people that have done this and dealt with it. I have no idea what the outcome of this property is going to be when it's all said and done, and maybe that doesn't matter for this discussion, and it doesn't. But why should we even entertain the thought of inventing a wheel that, quite honestly, and I don't mean to speak for everyone here, but that we don't know anything about? They do. So let's get on that bandwagon. And we are. so-
And we've talked to them. It's not as if we haven't talked to them,
Right.
but
Yeah.
like in
I
organized
know.
meetings.
I
So
know.
we certainly
I
have
know.
reached out to
Yeah.
many colleagues. I've reached out to not only Mille Lacs, but
Absolutely.
Cass County has dealt with this, and other counties too. But a formalized meeting for everybody to sit at the same time would be great.
I
So
think
I'm
it's
working on getting
very
dates for
important,
them.
from what I was told.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair and Devin, you'll let us all know about that meeting.
Yes, yes, I will do that. I don't know that Mille Lacs was intending to have, a public meeting, was intending to just have
No, I don't-
representatives from
I
the
think so.
board. So, that would
Just fine.
probably be what we would also, reciprocate with.
Anything else, gentlemen? If not, we'll be doing the committee reports. How about, let's start with Mr. Johnson.
The what did we talking, 18th through the 30th or something?
Yep.
Yes.
18th of July through the
Yep.
30th of July.
18th, we got a facility meeting here at 8:30 in the morning. The 19th, we got a planning meeting at 8:30. And Commissioner Wilson and I have community development at Pine Country Bank at 12:15 on the 19th. I'm down for MCEA on the 21st at 10:30. On the 25th, we got a planning and zoning meeting, and the comp plan public hearing will be at that meeting also, at 7 o'clock on July 25th. We have board on the 26th. On the 26th at 1 PM, we have budget. That is all I have.
Commissioner Wilson.
I've got on the 21st, we got TCC at 5 o'clock. And then something came in this morning, the city of Little Falls is gonna be talking about parking situation over at the initiative fund at 7:30 to 9,
That's when?
on the 21st, the initiative thing. And then the only other thing I have is the Hands of Hope Golf Tournament on the 29th, because 3 of us will be there, I think, so.
Okay, Commissioner Mauer.
All right, HRA on the 20th at 7:30 in the morning. The Airport Commission meeting on the 21st was canceled, just so you know that. Let's see here. Stand Up For You at 1 o'clock on 25th at the middle school. And then I'll be at that Hansford Golf Tournament on the 29th at the Little Falls Country Club.
Commissioner Zelinski.
To add to what everybody else has said, on the 18th, there was an EMS advisory meeting at night at 7 PM that's been canceled. On the 20th, the Hands of Hope meeting that was scheduled for the 20th was changed to the 13th of July, which I believe is tomorrow. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I'm going to be involved in some election judge training here at the Government Center on the 20th. On the 21st, 10 o'clock in the morning, we've got an Armor Owners and Operators meeting in Douglas County. At 7:30 that evening, there's an Egg Society meeting, which is at, normally it's here at the courthouse in the winter, but in the summer, it's at the fairgrounds. On the 25th, at 9 o'clock in the morning, there's an Armor Statewide Leadership meeting. And that's in St. Cloud. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a Special Emergency Services Board meeting. Reference the coordinator position. That's also in St. Cloud. I don't know if anybody said we have a Planning Commission meeting that night.
Yep, in the public hearing.
Public hearing. On the 27th, Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board meets in their executive committee at 11 o'clock in the morning. At 1 o'clock that afternoon is the Emergency Services Board meeting, and I believe that is the finalizing the budget. Is that possible?
No.
Or is that bringing the budget all together? I
I
can't
gotta be
remember.
honest, I wasn't really listening. What were you saying?
Emergency Services Board, it's a,
Oh, maybe.
that could be the finalizing.
You have a meeting though, right?
Yeah, there's a
There we
meeting,
go.
doesn't matter. Nobody cares, right? Okay.
That's at 11, you said.
We trust you on that one.
On the
Sorry.
28th, there's an Armor State Emergency Communications Board meeting in Arden Hills. That's at 12:30. And that should be it.
And myself, the only thing is I have a library meeting on the 19th at 6 o'clock, and that would be it. Anything else, gentlemen? If not, I need a motion to
So move for
adjourn.
adjournment.
So moved.
I got Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Wilson is second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned